This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Root Tips to Wingtips Health Coaching Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Efan Hsieh. She is a functional medicine health coach and nature connection teacher. And I'm so excited to get a chance to reconnect. We actually met in college and now get the opportunity to reconnect over health coaching.
Yeah, and we both studied environmental science.
Yes.
It seems like it was so long ago, but it is wonderful to reconnect and just see how we've come full circle and are interested in health and helping people achieve better health.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm so glad that we get a chance to talk today. So, tell us a little bit about how you got started on your journey.
Yeah, I was always interested in nature, as we've mentioned. And after college, I moved into a organic farm in Western Massachusetts, and I had just really the pleasure of living as close to the earth as possible. I was involved in raising our own, lambs our own meats, chickens, getting eggs from our chickens every day, honey from the bees, vegetables from the garden. And I was also teaching wilderness survival skills as part of several different schools in the New England, Vermont, Western Massachusetts area. And so I did that for quite a while. I experienced really thriving health. I was also in my 20s. So I just felt like, I kind of knew that not everybody lives that way, but I also didn't really realize how special that simple kind of living is in modern life. And it wasn't until I moved to Taiwan, which is where I'm originally from, and I experienced the opposite of that health. I was living in one of the most densely populated urban centers in the world, that's Taipei, and just stacked in these apartment buildings and, dealing with a subtropical environment. And I didn't have my own kitchen. I was eating street food, living with like an AC on all the time. And just, there's mold situations. I got really, really sick. And I got so sick for 5 years that I didn't have any energy. I had hardly any energy to get out of bed. I was getting sick with bronchitis every 2 months, and I was just getting full of antibiotics. And I thought, you know what, this is just crazy. I need to return to my roots. And that's when I started researching nutrition, and specifically ancestral nutrition and functional medicine, diving into the rabbit hole of nutrition, looking up Google. And I realized I needed to get training. So I went through Chris Kresser's Adapt Functional Health Training Program. It's a 1-year intensive program. And the framework is functional health and ancestral nutrition. So that really resonated with me. And I really found that actually I love coaching. So that was a big surprise. So that's kind of the short story. The short story made a bit long.
Awesome. Well, it's really cool to hear how you had such a special opportunity to work on that organic farm right after college, and then how you kind of did a 180 and moved to Taiwan. And so you went from living on this beautiful organic farm and being kind of one with the land to moving to a completely urban, what do they call them? Food desert.
Yeah. And it's, the organic food industry there at that time was very nascent. It was really difficult. It's not like they have these giant Whole Foods there. It's still, everything is a really small market. And in order to turn around my health, I focused first on nutrition and getting a really nutrient dense diet from high quality ingredients. So I spent a lot of time figuring out, okay, like how is my meat raised? And I was doing this all like in Chinese, it was very different. It was really different, but I found that the same principles applied for good health. It's, the principle is that the further away from nature we are, the unhealthier we tend to be. So that's kind of my philosophy and the way that I look at it.
Wow, and that's amazing that you went through Chris Kresser's program and you were able to not only learn how to heal yourself, you were able to help others who are experiencing something similar, help them do the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and I want to add another piece to this, which is since I started the program, I really became focused on the effects of burnout on our health, because this is such a huge issue, especially with the pandemic. More and more people are experiencing it. Chronic stress in general. We know that it's not good for us, but maybe we're not really aware of in the moment when we're dealing with stressful situations in life, or that stress never allows us to recover fully. We don't really know how to extricate ourselves from that stress or manage that stress. And so I've really been deep diving on the effect of burnout, overwhelm, chronic stress, and even trauma, wondering what is the relationship between all those, and how are they similar? How are they different? And really finding out that trauma and burnout are actually the same thing, and it has to do with our nervous system. So since then, I've really been diving into nervous system regulation and nature connection as part of these essential pieces. Nutrition is part of that as well, but these are essential pieces for returning to living a really healthy life.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that it's really cool to hear how, again, you talk about weaving in burnout. I mean, that's so, especially with the American society of like, there's no sleep or rest. It's just go 24/7.
Right. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that mentality that definitely brings forth that burnout. And also I think a lot of people view stopping to rest and taking care of yourself as a sign of weakness. And if there's a way to kind of shift that mindset to, hey, rest days. I mean, if you think about training for a marathon or training for any kind of athletic event, rest days are just as important as training days. They give your body time to recover in between the training events. And if you think about a typical work week, I mean, we just kind of go 7 days a week. And even on the weekends, we're constantly planning activities and not really giving our bodies time to rest.
Or those weekend warriors where,
yes,
you need to make up for the lack of physical activity. So you just go out and try to overdo it kind of when really you needed to rest more and maybe do less things. But I think that's shifting. I mean, I think the pandemic has really made it obvious to so many people that, we have this term now, self-care isn't selfish, and self-care is healthcare. Sometimes I even say that, but what does that really mean? How do we break it down? Because when you apply it into your personal life, and if there's some kind of block or maybe a story that you have, that will manifest as feeling guilty for taking time, or just feeling like everyone depends on you, or maybe you have this perfectionist tendency where you think like you're the one that can do it the right way, or whatever. It's going to be different for everybody. So when the rubber hits the road, that's really what self-care is about. It's really about those beliefs and working with them. And that's why coaching is so great because it's not like a prescription of, actually they're talking about how doctors might prescribe experiences like, go for a walk in nature a certain amount of times per week, but implementing that in a way that's sustainable, that's really what coaching is about.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned coaching, and I wanted to see, so I know you talked about Chris Kresser's program, and that's about functional medicine. Can you talk a little bit about that program and kind of define what functional medicine is?
Sure. If people don't know who Chris Kresser is, he's a leader in the functional medicine space. He was a clinician and acupuncturist in California. I think he co-founded, or he may have founded, California Center for Functional Medicine. I'm not exactly sure what that is, the name of that, but he's since not doing clinical work anymore, but he's written several books. One of them is called The Paleo Cure, and it's, talking about basically the mismatch between our genes and our modern life. And, he's got a podcast and all that. So you can look that up. I actually didn't know who he was when I started the program. I went for the strength of the program, and I was looking for something that was really robust, that was evidence-based, that would provide a framework of functional medicine and ancestral health, as well as a lot of practice time with coaching. So we had mentor coaches, and it was very intensive. There was, the first part was 6 months, and that was just studying. We had weekly live calls with our mentors, and we had TAs who were all practicing in functional medicine as nutritionists, or, they had a certification that allowed them to speak about that and teach about it. And then the second half was really getting our personal clients, practicing with our personal clients, and passing a practical skills assessment, which is consistent with the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches requirements for their certification. So I am really happy with the program. It's no longer running, but, I've made some really amazing friends. All other health coaches are health seekers, and we all really love learning things about the body and about health and improvement and mindset. And it just, I feel like I've really met a wonderful group of people.
That's awesome. And yeah, the coaching community, I'm so glad that you have built those friendships and those connections with other coaches too. I think it's definitely nice to have that supported community and create an environment of learning. Mm-hmm. And being able to learn as much as you can, and having that exchange of energy and information too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool. And how do you incorporate your studies into your current practice? And what kinds of areas do you focus on, or do you specialize in?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would coach anybody that really would be open to experiencing some aspect of change in their well-being, but specifically coaching people that are dealing with burnout, or they want to, they know that they're on a path of, oh, this is not sustainable, or they might even feel like, hey, I at some point I've lost connection with my true self. This is not who I know myself to be. I am not a person that just struggles to get out of bed in the morning and just struggles to make it through each day. Just having no energy for even connecting with my loved ones, my spouse. Where did the zest go out of my life? When did that happen? When did I just try to make it through each day? So that's kind of like what I'm really passionate about, helping. And I do that on different levels. So the first level is the body piece. So, these are things like regulating your blood sugar, making sure you get enough protein, eating nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, whole foods, things like that. So there's that part. And, I work with the 4 pillars of healthy habits. But there's also the mindset. So like we touched on the beliefs that might be keeping you from self-care, or that might be putting you continually in these patterns of taking on too much. And so we're kind of deconstructing that in a way, in a safe way. And then there's the nervous system piece. And that's what I'm really excited about, is how to regulate our nervous system, and how to basically to feel that we are safe, and that we are enough, and we are taken care of, and we have that power to take care of ourselves. And so when our nervous system knows that, we're operating on a different nervous system. Basically, we're operating in a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest state, and that's a place of calm, aliveness, not of overwhelm, not of anxiety or agitation, and it's not a place of that like heaviness of like, I don't have energy, and what's the point of putting in efforts? So it's that place where we're the most alive. And then the last place is on the spiritual level. So, come from an evidence-based place, dealing with the body. But underneath all that is just developing our own self-awareness and realizing that maybe we've gone through some really tough times, but what can those things teach us? And what can we glean from them and move on to be wiser people, maybe connecting with a deeper vision of ourselves and our lives, even maybe even touching into being a place of service to other people through our journey. So that's the spiritual piece as well.
Wow, that's really cool. And I love that you take more of a holistic approach to health as well. And I think that's oftentimes where modern medicine, yes, it's great to have specialties and things, though when you have a specialty, sometimes you forget about the other parts that make us a whole body. And it's a body, mind, and spirit that you're trying to connect and really make sure that, again, it's you're looking at all the aspects of health. So, I mean, even thinking back to when you were talking about being inside and living in Taiwan and like getting really sick. I mean, yes, there was mold, but there were probably other factors as well. And so working on like all the different aspects to really fully and completely heal, not just, okay, I'm over the mold thing now, but where are your mind and your spirit after all of that too? Yeah.
The mold thing was really, really crazy. It's just a quick story. I mean, I was living in this apartment and finally got my landlord to clean out the AC unit, which he just didn't want to do. And finally he cleaned it out, and there was black mold in it and rat poop. I don't know how that got in there, but it was just crazy to think that I had been breathing it every time I turned it on. But really validating too, to know that I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
But and the things like that, there are triggers in our environment that can really bring on symptoms and bring on this downward spiral of not being well. So that might have been one thing, other things like just toxicities or Lyme disease or whatever. It might be different for everybody. But the nature connection piece I wanted to mention, because when we think about mold, or we think about maybe like gut dysbiosis, where I actually had food poisoning that was really bad. I think that was my trigger. Was I had such bad food poisoning, I had to go to the hospital because I couldn't walk, and I had that a couple times. Of course, I got like pumped full of antibiotics after that. And when you think about something like that, that's a sign that we are out of touch with our environment, because our microbiome and the micro, what is the right word that I'm looking for? it's kind of like the microbiome of the earth, right? Of the ground, the soil, the food. It's not matching up, and there's an imbalance there. So, I mean, that's just one example of when we're out of sync with nature, then we also are not healthy. But also in terms of nervous system regulation, I found that nature has been a huge part of regulating my nervous system. And it's been a huge part of my own healing journey as well, because, you know, I didn't mention this earlier, but I left Taiwan because I had a toxic relationship and it turned out really badly. I ended up leaving the whole country and my whole life there on very short notice within less than a week. And it was really traumatizing. I had PTSD from it. And I was disassociating from my body. Even, it was just so overwhelming. And it was a tree. It was connecting with a tree that really kind of grounded me and brought me really back into my body. So it's like, there's practices like that are not only helpful, but I feel essential in modern life that you can have, everyone has access to.
And thank you for sharing that. I know must have been quite an experience to go through. And again, I think that's so amazing that even though you went through such a traumatic event, just a simple act of reconnecting with a tree really brought you back into your own body. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we've lost a lot of. And I think it's such a great reminder that you're helping your clients reconnect or connect for the first time with nature, and mm-hmm. showing how important it is to incorporate nature into mm-hmm. our health and well-being.
Yeah. So you might be asking kind of like along the same lines, but I'm really excited about connecting the nature connection practices with somatic work. So the somatic work is just anything that relates to how your body is relating with your surroundings, your environment and your space. So it's been part of my journey in learning about how to release trauma that might be stored in the body, is doing the somatic work, but then also applying it to nature connection work and seeing how they work synergistically. So when you have the good nutrition down, you have, you're creating positive mental support structures for yourself. And then you're also doing the somatic work and the nature connection work. They combine symbiotically, and it's, you have to work on one thing, but also work on multiple things at the same time. So they really do help each other out.
Oh, that's really awesome. So I know in our conversation yesterday, we talked a little bit about this, but I know we talked about how do you discover the new person you're becoming without losing the true essence of yourself?
That is such a good question. When we go through traumatic events, or we're shedding the person that we were, because, well, first of all, a lot of people get to that point because things have been really hard. Like you realize things aren't working, or this person that I used to be doesn't resonate with me anymore, or gosh, I just really need to change some things. Or it could be life, life is bringing you some kind of situation that it might be a shock. So yeah, the process of change is constantly like being true, like finding ways to be true to yourself. And that's the piece of like not losing the essence of who you used to be. I think it really begins with self-awareness. So like awareness and acceptance of the things that you couldn't change, but that happened in the past. They just, it happened. So that acceptance is important. And then being compassionate towards towards oneself. I think that in our culture, it's really easy to compare ourselves with other people who it seems like they have everything all together. But actually, in the process of coaching, I've discovered that everybody questions themselves. Everybody doubts themselves. Even the top maybe 1 or 10% people, celebrities, very successful people. And I would say that the more successful somebody is, the more those voices probably are coming up. So just realizing that we're not alone in that and having compassion towards ourselves it's such an essential piece of that reclaiming who we already are, but also exploring the new territory of who we are becoming in that. So, there's so many pieces there. But I want to hear what your response is to that first.
I think that I love that approach too. And I think when we also talked about post-traumatic growth versus resilience yesterday, and so what would be the difference between post-traumatic growth versus resilience?
Yeah, so these are actually terms that have been researched in psychology, and resilience is the ability to bounce back from something that was stressful or detrimental to your health and be able to reach the same place that you were before. And that we can talk about resilience as far as like on a physiological, cellular level, and also an emotional level. Post-traumatic growth is something that's deeper than that. And it's about not just returning to the same person that you were, but growing from something that happened in the past. And you may connect with a deeper sense of purpose. You may find a bigger why, or like a deeper understanding of, well, maybe whatever it was that you went through was not easy, but what was the silver lining from that? How did it help you grow? So that's the difference between post-traumatic growth and resilience. And an important thing is, like, whatever event people have gone through that was hard does not define who you are. So I know we talked about that as well. That was a huge piece of learning for me, was realizing that trauma is not a bad event that happened to us. Trauma is the effect of that in our bodies. That is, like, it's living in our nervous system, it's living in our biology. And it's anything that overwhelmed us at the time that we ran out of the internal resources to deal with. But we're always doing the best that we can at every moment. Like, everybody is always doing the best that they can in every moment. I really firmly believe that. And our capacity is going to be different in each moment. It's going to be different each day. And so accepting, okay, well, I just don't have that much capacity today, is going to really help make things easier. It also makes it easier to forgive other people. Doesn't make what other people did right. If they did something wrong or mean or hurtful, it doesn't make that right. But it does help us forgive them for our own sake. So forgiving is not for the sake of somebody else. It's so that we can be clear and that we can move on from a clear space, so that we don't have to live with that energy stuck in our system, and we can actually create the future that we want to. So it's a freedom and a gift for ourselves.
I think that's such an important reminder, especially now, is that yes, there can have been, we may have experienced some sort of trauma in our life.
And everybody does.
Yeah. Life
is traumatic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's just face it. That's part of the human condition.
Exactly.
But, let's normalize it. It's I feel like even before I learned about this, talking about trauma was this hush hush a very heavy thing to talk about, but no, let's normalize it because being human is traumatic.
I'm so glad you said that. And yes, it definitely needs to be something that's more openly discussed and not something that's kind of, oh, we just don't talk about that, because that could be the most detrimental thing that we could ever do to ourselves, is experiencing life and then shoving it down into this deep dark place, only for it to resurface.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll definitely be another form, though that same kind of experience could happen again. And so if you don't learn from it, like it's a way, it's like, how can we discuss it so it doesn't happen again? And as much as we want to wrap each other up in bubble wrap and you're going to be fine, nothing's going to happen.
Let's not talk about it. There's like nothing to talk about, or we'll shove it under the rug.
Right.
And that is a sign of being uncomfortable with feelings, right? And that is really about not being comfortable with the sensations that the feelings give up. There's probably a story, like a mental story around the feeling as well. So somatic work and the biology of trauma work is about unraveling those different pieces and acknowledging them, which is the opposite of making them disappear. But ironically enough, when you acknowledge the feelings and the sensations in your body and you bring your awareness to them, they can move through your system and they just kind of resolve themselves. And our bodies are constantly talking to us. So I really believe that we have wisdom in our bodies, and no disease or health condition ever just pops up randomly out of nowhere. There was a period of time where it was developing. Maybe it was latent. We just didn't observe the symptoms. And after a certain amount of time, the body just said, okay, I can't adapt anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And that's when symptoms start coming up. And so unresolved trauma and things that are unresolved in our environment, maybe an improper diet or whatever that is, it's going to be different for each individual. It's going to take some time to pop up. So it takes time to unravel as well. But the good news is that it tends to not take as long to heal than it did to get there, if that makes sense. But it does, it's a participatory process. You have to be a part of it.
I'm so glad you said that. And I think that's where it's definitely important to have a coach to help guide you through something like this. A coach you can look at as just kind of like your GPS, is like they're going to guide you through and help you on your healing journey, know where to go and provide that safe space for you to be able to talk about those feelings, or maybe figure out, I mean, maybe you've grown up where you weren't allowed to talk about feelings, or not knowing the words to connect with those feelings. Mm-hmm. And so it's great that you're able to help your clients through reconnecting, addressing the trauma, and two, helping them navigate out of that so they can get to where they want to be and function at their optimal level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like how you said the word GPS, and I actually believe that the client is the GPS. Like we talk about the inner wisdom, like that's the GPS. So the coach has a framework and training, and they have the context that they can guide you through. Well, what's the first step for this person right now? It's going to be different for another person, between this person and another person. It's very commonly the first step is removing anything that is going to be triggering these symptoms, or just like very stressful situations. It could be if this person is not sleeping very well, it could be helping them, get a good night's sleep. It could be getting rid of the toxins first, right? So it's different for everybody. I usually go first to the body, and other things, other levels that I mentioned will reveal themselves.
That's really awesome. And so if you could tell us a little bit about how our listeners can connect with you.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Instagram. My handle is thrive.with.efan, and my name is spelled EFAN. So Thrive with Efan, with a dot in between of them. You can also email healthcoachefan@gmail.com. And I'm going to be starting a weekly newsletter in January 2023. So that's the time of this recording. That's before that's happened yet. But so you're welcome to sign up for a newsletter and get these weekly, basically what I'm thinking, what I'm reading about, what I'm learning in my journey. And I share a sacred question each week. So these are questions that may or may not have an answer, but they're driving me in my own journey. And I think that's a good start right there.
I think that's wonderful, and it's really great. I think it's nice to have kind of a prompt, and I love that you have those sacred questions that you'll be having in your newsletter each week. I think that that'll get people thinking rather than just, oh, here's another email. Have it be, okay, really, really thinking about and asking those deeper questions.
When we talk about balancing the brain, it's like we have enough information. Information is important, but there's also a part that isn't about receiving information. It's about inquiry or openness or curiosity or something like that.
Wow, that was really cool. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us today?
I guess, like the one piece is just that wherever you are is enough. Like whatever you're experiencing right now is okay. And that all things change, if it's a difficult place, it's going to not be difficult forever. If you're on the top of the mountain right now, that's, we can prepare ourselves for the times when things aren't going so swimmingly. And I feel like just having someone on your team, on your support team, that is impartial and non-judgmental and can hold a safe space and actually reflect things that you don't see about yourself. I think that's, it's really powerful for people.
Wow. Well, thank you so much again. It's been such a wonderful time to get to spend more time with you and get to learn about what you're up to these days. And also thank you for everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys to our listeners for joining another episode of our Root Tips to Wingtips Health Coaching Podcast. And we look forward to talking to you again next time.